Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another PlayStation review. Today I'm taking a look at The Inquisitor on PlayStation 5. Now this game came out a couple of weeks ago on the PlayStation. It's a game that I was initially interested in, even though it's not been getting sterling reviews or anything like that. Mainly because I like the idea and the premise of this game. And essentially, you play a character called Mortimer. The game is set in Königstein in 1533, I believe it is, something like that. And you are an Inquisitor, and you are sent to this place because there have been reports of a vampire by the church. So you've been sent here to investigate. Now, this game is set in an alternate religious universe, I suppose. And what I mean by that is, in this universe, when Jesus Christ was sacrificed on the cross, he didn't die. He basically broke loose and took his vengeance out on those that put him on the cross. So in this version of Christianity and religion, it is now forgiveness is a sin and vengeance is seen as a good thing. And these inquisitors kind of, enforce this. And they are like an extension of the church where they investigate things and they've got like powers of justice, all that kind of stuff. And they're quite revered. So you turn up here to do your investigating, and initially you will meet with like the locals, the head of the guards, the mayor, that kind of thing, and then you'll basically start your investigation. And it's based on like it's a reasonably large area to kind of walk around and explore, and it's kind of broken up into sections, and once you go to a new section, there's a little loading screen, and then you're in the new section. So it's not open world or anything like that, but it's they're fairly large sections to investigate. There's not really much in the way of reward for your investigation. There are little things to pick up and read, that sort of stuff, and it calls them collectibles, but they're not really collectibles. And then you will go around. The game is fully voice acted to a pretty decent standard. You will go around and chat to the locals, and there's like dialogue options. And some of these dialogue options will have like an effect on like, the outcome of the game, that sort of thing. And it's fairly simple to figure out kind of where it may well be heading, depending on your answers. And what I mean by that is, when most dialogue options, it'll kind of give you one of two choices, and occasionally it'll give you a third. And it'll be like a good answer, which will be like a fair, practical, and a decent approach or answer. Then there's a bad answer where you can be a bit spiky and a bit vengeful or whatever. A pretty horrible character, and occasionally you'll get like something in between where it's a bit more neutral, if you like. So it's kind of easy to figure out which way you want to go with your character. You can be a good character or a bad character. So there's a little bit of role play going on here, but don't expect massive branching story arcs here, because you're just not going to get it in this game. It's not that kind of game. Now, this game is trying to be a few different things. Now, with a lot of the things it tries to do, it kind of fails, and fails quite drastically. The things that it does that are pretty good, it's pretty good at. So it's almost like there are systems in the game, like, for example, there's like basic combat in the game. And it's the usual thing. Occasionally you'll be presented with a scenario in the game where you've got to draw your sword and defend yourself. And this basically is like the usual thing: light attack, heavy attack, dodge, parry, all that kind of stuff, a bit of blocking. But it's just not very well done. It doesn't feel very intuitive. The camera angles are poor, and when you swing your sword, it kind of feels like you're swinging at thin air. So it feels very tacked on to me, and it doesn't really add an awful lot to the game. But I appreciate the attempt to kind of give the game a little bit something more. The things it kind of does get right is like the presentation and the investigation side of the game. You can kind of follow smells, a bit Witcher-like. You can eavesdrop when you're investigating, so you can get to like scenes of crimes, and then you'll kind of scan over the body and stuff, get yourself clues. You could sit plonk yourself on a seat. Very Assassin's Creed, like, I suppose, just nowhere near as intuitive as that. And then almost like float out of your body and listen in on conversations and try and find clues as to where to go next, sort of thing. So the investigation side of it, I think, is pretty good, and I think that's one side of the game that I think works pretty well. Certainly for me, because I like my detective games, I like Sherlock Holmes games, I like Poirot games, and while I don't think this is on their level, certainly some of them, it's a decent attempt to give us a pretty decent like detective game. There's another kind of game mode here, and it's like when Mortimer prays, there are certain points in the game where you need to kind of pray with Mortimer to kind of figure out what to do next. It takes you to what is called like the underworld. So you'll pray, go to this underworld, and what the game wants you to do is wander around this underworld collecting what it calls shards. And these shards are clues to advance you in the investigation. But it's quite a dangerous place to be, the underworld. You know, there's like this big Lovecraftian creature in the sky that is looking for you. There's like these shadows that are looking for you. And it really just forces you to be stealthy. So these sections are more like stealth sections of the game. For me, they're arguably my least favourite parts of the game, because I don't like stealth games, essentially. But, you know, it's a nice attempt to do something different. To like a detective mode, even though you're just wandering around picking up shards that, once you've completed that, will move you on to the next stage of the investigation. The game also has things like QuickTime events. So if you're not a fan of QuickTime events, then you're probably not going to be a fan of that in this game. And it's mainly when you're chasing after somebody, or when someone is chasing after you. Or when you're trying to bust through a door, that sort of thing. It's nothing egregious, and it's not, you know, a massive game mechanic, but it is there. As I've mentioned, I think one thing the game does get right is like the atmosphere. There are certain parts of the game where I think it really, really nails this. And for example, fairly early in the game, you'll kind of come across this jester character down in the dungeons. And he kind of talks in rhyme, is very, very creepy, and, you know, it gets to the point where you've got to kind of search for him down in these dungeons, and it's very dark down there, and it's done really well. It's quite tension-filled, and very creepy at times, and that is really what I wanted more of in this game. I wanted more of that, and I think if they'd have given us more of that, I think we could have had a really special game, really, if it had been consistent in its approach. To how the game looks and performs, you can see for yourself. Occasionally this game looks terrible. Some of the face models, some of the character models look pretty poor. Even you could argue Mortimer's character model doesn't look brilliant or anything. At times it looks like a middling PS3 title. And then at other times, the lighting is just bang on, and it nails it, and it looks quite a pretty game. So while it's nothing special to look at, it does its job, and occasionally it exceeds at that in regards to delivering on the creepy atmosphere that the game is aiming for. It is fully voice acted, as I've mentioned, and it is done to a pretty decent standard. We've all heard better than what we get here, but it's also not tone deaf either, or terribly delivered the lines. Sometimes, as I've said, with the jester character, as you can see here, I mean, that is done very, very well. I think Mortimer's character is pretty decent voice acting. So you've heard better, but you've certainly heard worse as well. And in regards to performance, honestly, I've not had one crash yet since I've been playing this. It runs pretty smoothly. Yeah, when you're playing the game, it's pretty janky, it's pretty rough around the edges, and there's a lot of clipping going on with characters and stuff like that. But performance-wise, in regards to crashes and stuff, I personally haven't have experienced any, but that doesn't mean to say that you won't. So, I mean, this game is it's hard to know who to pitch this game to. You know, it's not a full price game. It was $34.99 that I paid for it. I would be happy, you know, to pay like £25 for this. So I would probably say to you guys, if you are interested in this game, maybe if you wait probably for a sale fairly soon in the next couple of months, you'll probably pick this up for about £25. And I think at that price, it is definitely worth a look. And I'm not saying I think $34.99 is overpriced or anything, because I don't necessarily think so. But I think at 25, it's about on the money for that game, for this game. Sorry. So yeah. Check it out, guys. If any of it sounds interesting, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are if you're going to check this game out. I hope you've enjoyed this review and I hope you found it useful. If you did, please click the like button. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll be back with more content and reviews very, very soon.